Well, partner, let me tell you about the day that changed my whole damn perspective on life. Name's Jake Morrison, but most folks on the CB call me Big Rig. Been hauling freight across this great nation for 23 years, and I thought I'd seen it all. Hell, I was wrong as a soup sandwich. It was early October 2019. I was running my usual route, a load of auto parts from Tulsa down to Albuquerque. Same old grind, you know? Wake up at 4 a.m., black coffee that could strip paint, check the rig, and hit the road before the sun even thinks about showing its face. My Peterbilt 379, she's a beauty. Midnight blue with chrome that shines like a mirror. Was humming like a church choir on Sunday morning. Now, I ain't what you'd call a religious man. Lost my faith somewhere between my second divorce and watching my daddy waste away in that hospital bed. Figure if there's a God up there, he's got better things to do than worry about some broken-down trucker hauling cargo across Route 66. But that morning, something felt different. Can't put my finger on it, but the air had this electricity to it. My routine was always the same. Check the weather on the CB, grab a breakfast burrito from that little joint on Riverside Drive, and hit I-40 until I could catch old Route 66 near Oklahoma City. Been doing this run for 8 years straight, twice a month like clockwork. The dispatcher, Carol, she knew she could count on Big Rig Morrison to get the job done. No drama, no delays, no bullshit. Just point A to point B, safe and sound. That morning, though, I kept catching myself looking in the mirrors more than usual. Not for smokies or road hazards, but like I was expecting to see something important. My CB was quieter than usual, too. Normally, you got truckers jawing about everything from politics to the best truck stop coffee between here and California. But that day, dead air mostly. Just the occasional breaker 19 and position reports. I remember thinking it was going to be just another boring haul. Boy, was I about to learn different. I was about 40 miles east of Oklahoma City when I saw her, standing there on the shoulder of old Route 66, thumb out, wearing what looked like, well, I'll be damned if it wasn't a nun's habit. Black and white, traditional as apple pie, but dusty as hell from the road. Now, I got a strict policy about picking up hitchhikers. Don't do it. Too many crazies out there, and insurance don't cover stupid decisions. But something about this little lady made me ease off the throttle. Maybe it was the way she stood there, calm as a lake on a windless day, like she knew exactly what she was doing. Or maybe it was that smile. Even from 100 yards out, I could see it lighting up her whole face like a neon sign. She couldn't have been more than 5'0", probably in her 60s, with one of those faces that looked like it had seen some hard times, but came through smiling anyway. I keyed the CB, half expecting to hear chatter about some escaped mental patient or something. Breaker 19. This is Big Rig eastbound on the 6-6. You'll see that nun thumbing a ride near mile marker 142. Over. Static. Nothing but dead air and the rumble of my diesel engine. That was weird. Usually you got at least 3 or 4 drivers ready to chime in about anything unusual on the road. The thing that really got me was her luggage, just a small brown suitcase, looked like it was older than dirt, and what appeared to be a guitar case. A guitar case. What kind of nun travels with a guitar? And she wasn't frantically waving or looking desperate like most hitchhikers. She was just standing there, patient as sunrise, like she knew somebody was going to stop. Like she knew it was going to be me. That's when I should have just kept on trucking, should have minded my own business and stuck to my route. But hell, curiosity killed the cat, and I was feeling mighty feline that morning. Something about her just didn't add up, and I've always been a sucker for a good mystery. I slowed down, but my foot was still hovering over that accelerator like a nervous cat. Every instinct I'd developed over 2 decades on the road was screaming at me to keep moving. Don't be an idiot, Jake, I muttered to myself. Nuns don't hitchhike. This is some kind of setup. See, I'd heard stories. Truckers getting robbed, carjacked, worse. Hell, just last month at the Flying J in Amarillo, old Pete Smokestack Williams told me about some driver who picked up what looked like a sweet old lady near Flagstaff. Turned out she had 3 guys waiting in the bushes with baseball bats and bad intentions. Pete ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks, and his rig got stripped cleaner than a Thanksgiving turkey. Insurance company fought him tooth and nail, claiming he violated company policy by picking up hitchhikers. I passed her by, watching in my side mirror as she got smaller and smaller, but damn if she didn't just keep standing there, patient as Job, that smile never leaving her face. No anger, no frustration, just peace. Made my gut twist up like a pretzel. Most folks would have been cussing up a storm, or at least looking disappointed. Not this lady. She just stood there like she had all the time in the world, like missing one ride didn't matter, 'cause another would come along. "Come on, Jake, use your head," I said out loud, trying to convince myself. "You got a schedule to keep. Dispatcher's already breathing down your neck about that delivery in Albuquerque. Last thing you need is some religious nutjob making you late." Carol had been real clear about this run. The auto parts plant was shutting down production until I got there with those transmission components. Every hour late was costing them thousands. But even as I tried to rationalize it, something felt wrong, real wrong, like I was making the biggest mistake of my life. The CB crackled with chatter from other drivers, but nobody mentioned seeing a nun. That should have been the first red flag, but I was too busy trying to convince myself I'd done the right thing. 10 miles down the road, I couldn't shake the image of her standing there, and my hands were gripping that steering wheel so tight my knuckles had gone white as fresh snow. My coffee had gone cold, and that breakfast burrito was sitting in my stomach like a rock. About 15 miles down the road, I pulled into Mel's Desert Oasis, one of those old-school truck stops that's been serving coffee and lies to truckers since Eisenhower was president. The place looked like it hadn't been updated since the Carter administration, with faded neon signs and pumps that wheezed like an old man climbing stairs. But Mel made the best damn coffee between Tulsa and Albuquerque, and right then I needed something stronger than the swill I had in my thermos. I was nursing my 3rd cup when I heard a familiar voice crackle over the CB radio behind the counter. "Big Rig, you copy? This is Preacher Man, westbound on the 6-6. Now, Preacher Man, real name's Samuel Washington. He's been running these roads longer than I've been alive. Black man with more wisdom in his pinky finger than most folks got in their whole body. Got his handle 'cause he used to be an actual preacher before he started trucking. Lost his congregation in a church fire back in '85, and instead of rebuilding, he said God called him to minister to folks on the highways." I grabbed the mic. "Preacher Man, this is Big Rig. Good to hear your voice, old-timer. You wouldn't happen to know anything about a nun thumbing rides on the 6-6, would you?" Long pause. The kind of pause that makes your blood run cold and your coffee taste like ashes. Then his voice came back, serious as a heart attack. "Son, I've been waiting for someone to ask me that question. You see her too, didn't you? Little lady in black and white, smile that could melt steel." My hands started shaking. "Jake, boy, some folks cross our path for a reason. That lady, she ain't what she appears to be, but she ain't dangerous neither. Question is, you brave enough to find out why she's there?" "What you mean, preacher? You know her." But the radio went dead. Static. I tried calling him back 3 times, but nothing. Mel looked at me from behind the counter, shaking his head. "That old boy's been talking about some mysterious nun for weeks now. Says she's been appearing to different drivers all along Route 66. Most folks think he's finally lost his marbles." I sat there in that truck stop for another 20 minutes, staring at my coffee like it held all the answers to life's mysteries. Mel kept giving me sideways glances, probably wondering why I looked like I'd seen a ghost. Hell, maybe I had. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Something deep in my gut was telling me I'd made a mistake. A big one. "Mel," I said, sliding a 5 across the counter, "I gotta ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. You ever see a nun around these parts? Older lady, maybe 60-something, carrying a guitar case?" Mel's weathered face went pale as milk. He looked around the diner like he was checking for eavesdroppers, then leaned in close. "Jake, I've been running this place for 37 years, seen all kinds of strange things on Route 66. But that nun, she's different. Shows up maybe once a month, always needs a ride west. Drivers who pick her up, they come back changed. I can't explain it, but they're better somehow, more at peace. He paused, wiping down the same spot on the counter for the third time. But here's the thing, she never ages. Been seeing her for near on 15 years now, and she looks exactly the same. My blood turned to ice water. You're pulling my leg, right? But Mel's expression was dead serious. Jake, I don't joke about things like this. That woman ain't entirely of this world, if you catch my meaning, but she ain't evil neither. Quite the opposite. I threw down another 5 and headed for the door. My conscience was eating me alive like acid. I'd left an old woman, nun or whatever she was, stranded on the side of the road. My mama didn't raise me to be that kind of man. Thanks, Mel. I gotta go back. He nodded like he'd been expecting it. Drive safe, son. And Jake, listen to what she tells you. Really listen. I fired up the Peterbilt and made a U-turn that probably violated about 6 traffic laws. My heart was pounding like a jackhammer as I headed back east on Route 66. What if she was gone? What if I'd missed my chance? The questions were driving me crazy, but I had to try. Had to make this right. 25 minutes later, I was back at mile marker 142, and there she was, still standing there like she hadn't moved an inch, that same peaceful smile on her face. But now the sun was getting lower, casting long shadows across the desert, and storm clouds were building on the horizon. Oklahoma weather can turn nasty faster than a rattlesnake strike, and I could smell rain in the air. I pulled over and climbed down from the cab, my boots crunching on the gravel shoulder. Up close, she was even more remarkable. Her habit was old but clean, and her eyes, damn, her eyes were the bluest I'd ever seen, like looking into a clear mountain lake. She couldn't have been more than 5'2", but she had this presence about her that made her seem 10 feet tall. "Sister," I said, tipping my cap, "I'm real sorry I passed you by earlier. Name's Jake Morrison. Where you headed?" She smiled wider, and I swear the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Not in a scary way, but like a cool breeze on a hot day. "Hello, Jake. I'm Sister Mary Catherine, but most folks just call me Sister Cat. I'm trying to get to Santa Fe. Got some business at the cathedral there." "Santa Fe's a long haul from here, sister." "You sure you want to ride with an old trucker like me?" She laughed, and it sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Jake, I've been waiting for you specifically. You're exactly who I need to talk to." That sent a chill down my spine. How could she have been waiting for me specifically? I'd never seen her before in my life. As I helped her up into the cab, thunder rumbled in the distance. The storm was coming fast, and Route 66 could be treacherous in bad weather. But something told me this ride was going to be dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with the weather. Sister Cat settled into the passenger seat like she belonged there, setting her guitar case carefully between her feet. "Jake," she said, as I pulled back onto the highway, "tell me about your father." I nearly drove off the road. How the hell did she know about my dad? "How do you know about my father?" I asked, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as we rolled through the darkening Oklahoma landscape. The storm clouds were getting thicker, and the first fat raindrops were starting to splatter against the windshield. Sister Cat didn't answer right away. She just sat there, looking out at the approaching storm with those impossibly blue eyes. Finally she spoke, and her voice was soft as a prayer. "Jake, your father didn't die thinking you hated him. He knew you loved him, even when you couldn't bring yourself to visit him in that hospital." My throat closed up like someone had wrapped a chain around it. I hadn't told anybody about that, not my ex-wives, not my drinking buddies, not even the therapist the company made me see after my second DUI. How the hell could this woman know about the worst mistake of my life? "Sister, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it's not a game, Jake. Your father, Robert Morrison, died on March 15th, 2003 at 3:47 in the morning. Lung cancer. You were supposed to be there, but you were in a bar in Flagstaff, too drunk and too proud to make the drive to Tulsa." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I had to pull over to the shoulder because my vision was blurring up with tears I'd been holding back for 16 years. "How?" I whispered, my voice breaking like a teenager's. "How could you possibly know that?" She reached over and put her small hand on my arm, and I swear I felt warmth spread through my whole body like I'd been injected with liquid sunshine. "Because he asked me to find you, Jake. He's been waiting a long time to tell you something important." The rain was coming down harder now, drumming on the roof of the cab like angry fists. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the desert in stark black and white. I should have been scared. Hell, I should have been running for the hills. But instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Dangerous, terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, I could finally make peace with the ghost that had been haunting me for 16 years. "Jake, I need you to drive to the old Lucille's gas station in Hydro. You know the place?" I nodded, unable to speak. Lucille's had been abandoned for years, but every trucker knew it. It was one of the most famous stops on Route 66 back in the day, before the interstate killed most of the old road. "Why there, sister?" "Because that's where your father is waiting." The words hit me like a physical blow. I started shaking so hard I could barely keep the truck on the road. "Sister, my father is dead. I went to his funeral. I threw dirt on his coffin. But even as I said it, part of me, the part that had been broken since that March morning 16 years ago, was desperate to believe her. The storm was getting worse. Wind was rocking the truck, and the rain was coming down so hard the wipers couldn't keep up. Visibility was down to maybe 50 feet, and every flash of lightning lit up the world like a photographer's strobe. This was the kind of weather that killed truckers, but I couldn't stop. Something was pulling me forward like a fish on a line. We turned off the main highway onto the old Route 66 alignment, and the road got rougher. Potholes deep enough to swallow a car, and weeds growing up through cracks in the asphalt. This part of the mother road had been forgotten by time, left to rot while the world moved on to faster, more efficient routes. But Sister Cat seemed to know exactly where we were going. "There," she said, pointing through the rain-streaked windshield. "Pull in there." Lucille's gas station materialized out of the storm like something from a dream. The old pumps were still there, rusted and broken, and the building looked like it was held together by memories and stubbornness. But there was a light in the window, a warm, yellow light that shouldn't have been there. I parked the truck and sat there, engine idling, afraid to move. "Sister, I can't do this. Whatever this is, I'm not ready." She smiled that peaceful smile again. "Jake, you've been ready for 16 years. You just didn't know it. Your father has something to tell you, and then you can finally forgive yourself." She opened the door and stepped out into the storm. "Come on. He's waiting inside." I sat in that truck for what felt like an eternity, watching Sister Cat walk through the rain toward that impossible light. Every rational part of my brain was screaming that this was crazy, that dead men don't wait in abandoned gas stations, that nuns don't know things they couldn't possibly know. But my heart, my broken, guilt-ridden heart, was pulling me toward that door like a magnet. Finally, I shut off the engine and stepped out into the storm. The rain hit me like ice-cold needles, soaking through my jacket in seconds. But as I walked toward Lucille's, something strange happened. The closer I got to that building, the warmer the air became. By the time I reached the door, the rain felt like a gentle spring shower instead of a Oklahoma thunderstorm. Sister Cat was waiting for me on the covered porch, completely dry, despite having walked through the downpour. "He's inside, Jake. Go on." Her voice was barely audible over the thunder, but somehow I heard every word clear as a bell. I reached for the door handle with a shaking hand, and it opened before I could touch it. The inside of Lucille's was exactly like I remembered from old photographs. Red vinyl booths, checkered linoleum floor, and a jukebox in the corner playing some old Hank Williams tune. But sitting in the booth by the window, wearing his favorite flannel shirt and that crooked smile I remembered from childhood, was my father, Robert Morrison, looking exactly like he had 20 years ago, before the cancer ate him alive. "Hello, son," he said, and his voice was warm as summer sunshine. "It took you long enough to get here." I stood there in the doorway, water dripping from my clothes, unable to move or speak or even breathe. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. But there he was, solid as life, gesturing for me to sit down across from him. "Dad?" The word came out as barely a whisper. He nodded, and I saw tears in his eyes, the same green eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. "Yeah, Jake, it's me. We need to talk, you and I. Got some things that need saying." I stumbled forward and collapsed into the booth across from him, my whole body shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. "But you died. I wasn't there. I should have been there, but I was too drunk and too stupid and too proud." "Jake." His voice cut through my babbling like a knife through butter. "Son, look at me." I raised my eyes to meet his, and for the first time in 16 years, I felt peace. "I forgive you. I forgave you the moment I drew my last breath. You think I didn't know why you couldn't come? You think I didn't understand that seeing me waste away was killing you inside?" He reached across the table and took my hand, and his touch was real and warm and everything I'd been missing for 16 years. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have been there. I should have told you I loved you. I should have—" He squeezed my hand, and suddenly all the words I'd been carrying around like stones in my chest came pouring out. 16 years of guilt and regret and self-hatred, all of it spilling across that checkered table like water from a broken dam. "Son, you did tell me you loved me. Every day of your life you told me. When you learned to drive that old pickup so you could help me with deliveries. When you stayed up all night helping me fix the transmission on the Kenworth. When you chose trucking because you wanted to follow in my footsteps. You think love is just words? Hell, boy, love is action. Love is showing up. Love is carrying on the family tradition, even when it breaks your heart." I was crying now, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. But for the first time since his funeral, they were tears of relief instead of guilt. "I missed you so much, Dad. Every mile I drive, every load I haul, I think about you. I think about how I let you down." He shook his head, that familiar smile spreading across his weathered face. "Jake, you never let me down. Not once. You think I'm not proud of you. 23 years on the road, clean safety record, reputation for reliability that's known from coast to coast. You're everything I hoped you'd become and more." He paused, looking out the window at the storm. "But son, you're carrying a load that ain't yours to carry. This guilt, this anger at yourself, it's time to let it go." "How, Dad? How do I let go of 16 years of hating myself?" He stood up from the booth and walked around to my side, putting his hand on my shoulder just like he used to when I was a kid, and the world seemed too big and scary to handle. "You start by forgiving yourself the same way I forgave you, completely and without conditions. You start by understanding that love doesn't end when the body dies. And you start by living the rest of your life in a way that honors what we built together, not what you think you destroyed." The jukebox switched to another song, "I'll Fly Away," and Dad started walking toward the door. "Wait!" I called out, panic rising in my chest. "Don't go yet. I have so many things I need to tell you." He turned back, and his smile was brighter than the lightning outside. "Son, I already know everything you need to tell me. But there's someone else who needs to hear it. Someone who's been waiting just as long as I have for you to forgive yourself." As my father walked toward the door, his form began to shimmer like heat waves rising from summer asphalt. "Dad, wait!" I jumped up from the booth, but he was already fading, becoming translucent as morning mist. "Remember what I told you, son. Love doesn't end. It just changes form." His voice echoed as if coming from a great distance, and then he was gone, leaving only the scent of Old Spice aftershave and motor oil, the smell of my childhood. I stood there in that impossible diner, tears streaming down my face, but for the first time in 16 years, they weren't tears of guilt. They were tears of gratitude, of relief, of a weight finally lifted from my shoulders. The jukebox fell silent and the warm light began to dim. Sister Cat appeared beside me, though I hadn't heard her come in. "How do you feel, Jake?" she asked, her voice gentle as a mother's lullaby. I took a deep breath, and it was like breathing for the first time. Different, like I've been carrying around a 100-pound pack, and someone just cut the straps. She nodded, satisfied. "Your father's been waiting a long time to give you that gift. But Jake, there's one more thing you need to do." "What's that, sister?" She walked over to where she'd left her guitar case and opened it. Inside wasn't a guitar at all, but a small wooden box, worn smooth by countless hands. "This belonged to your father. He asked me to make sure you got it." With trembling fingers I opened the box. Inside was his old CB radio microphone, the one he'd used for 30 years on the road, and a folded piece of paper. I unfolded the paper with shaking hands. It was a letter, written in my father's familiar scrawl. "Jake, if you're reading this, then Sister Cat found you like I asked her to. Son, I need you to know that every mile you drive, you carry my love with you. Every time you key that mic and help a fellow driver, you honor our family name. Stop punishing yourself for being human. Start living like the good man I raised you to be. The road is calling, son. Answer it with joy instead of guilt. Love always, Dad. P.S. Check your CB. Channel 19. I left you a message." I looked at Sister Cat through blurred vision. "How is this possible? How did you know him? How did you know about me?" She smiled that mysterious smile one last time. "Jake, some questions don't need answers. They just need faith. Your father loved you enough to find a way to reach across the veil and set you free. Don't waste that gift by trying to understand it. Just accept it." The storm outside had passed while we were inside, and when I walked out of Lucille's gas station, the first rays of dawn were painting the Oklahoma sky in shades of gold and pink. I turned back to thank Sister Cat, but the building was dark and empty again, looking like it had been abandoned for decades. The only sign that anything had happened was the wooden box in my hands and a sense of peace in my heart that I hadn't felt since I was a child. I climbed back into my Peterbilt and fired her up, but before I pulled back onto Route 66, I reached for my CB radio, Channel 19, just like Dad's letter said. Static filled the cab, and then, clear as a bell, I heard his voice one last time. "Big Rig, this is Ghost Rider. You copy?" I keyed the mic with trembling fingers. "Ghost Rider, this is Big Rig. I copy you, Dad. I copy you loud and clear. Son, I want you to remember something every time you key that mic. Every time you help a stranded motorist, every time you warn other drivers about a speed trap or bad weather, every time you show kindness to a fellow traveler. That's love in action. That's the Morrison family legacy. You carry it forward now." The static grew louder, and his voice began to fade. "I love you, son. Make me proud. I love you too, Dad. I'll make you proud every day for the rest of my life." The radio went silent, but the peace in my heart remained. I pulled back onto Route 66 and headed west toward Santa Fe, but I wasn't the same man who had picked up a mysterious nun the day before. The guilt that had been eating me alive for 16 years was gone, replaced by something I'd almost forgotten existed: purpose. Over the next few hours, as I rolled through the New Mexico desert with the sunrise painting the world in gold, I found myself helping other drivers in ways I hadn't done in years. I warned a four-wheeler about a speed trap near Tucumcari. I helped a broke-down motorist change a tire outside Santa Rosa. I bought coffee for a young trucker at a truck stop in Klein's Corners, just because he looked like he needed a friend. Each act of kindness felt like a prayer, like a way of honoring my father's memory and the love he'd shown me from beyond the grave. By the time I reached Santa Fe and delivered my load, I realized that Sister Cat had given me something more valuable than forgiveness. She'd given me back my purpose, my joy in the road, my connection to the brotherhood of drivers who make America run. I never saw Sister Mary Catherine again, though I've heard other drivers mention a mysterious nun who appears to those who need her most. Some say she's an angel. Others say she's just a kind woman with a gift for being in the right place at the right time. Me, I don't need to understand what she was. I just know that she saved my life, and through her, my father gave me the greatest gift a son could receive. The knowledge that love never dies, it just finds new